So I saw the Blues Brothers for the first time tonight. If you're wondering why I'm recording this in my bedroom and not in my car like I usually do these fresh from the theater reviews, it's because the film got out around 10 o'clock at night and it's about 10:37 now. And between the obvious issue of recording a video in an empty parking lot, as well as just uneven lighting, you can kind of see the problems from there. Anyway, Blues Brothers. Local theater that I went to was doing a special showing for Memorial Day, and since a lot of my usual classes weren't going on because of Memorial Day, that's how I spent my evening. Now, I can see why the film was as influential as it was. There are definitely a lot of really, really amazing and quotable moments. And I think a large part of why the film was as beloved as it was is because it very much is the kind of film that revels in its own absurdity, which is something you don't really see in comedies or really in a lot of films anymore, where they embrace the ridiculousness of their own presentation. And I think a large part of what makes the Blues Brothers work as a film is that amidst the outright insanity and absurdity that you just see throughout the film, you have it juxtaposed with the borderline stoic expression and even costume design of both Jake and Elwood, played by John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. And I think that's really what sells it. And even down to the costume design, where even the sunglasses, the fact that you don't really see the character's eyes and facial expressions, thus allowing them to have kind of this very like deadpan sort of reaction to everything, I think that's really what makes the comedy work. It's because you just have this ridiculousness of the humor and just the absurdity of everything going on around them, and just juxtaposed with two characters that are just kind of rolling with it. And I really think that's a large part of why this works. But another part of it that I noticed when it comes to the story that it's telling is that it almost has kind of like a mythic quality to it, where it's basically taking advantage of the fact of, yeah, we know this is a bit of a ridiculous film, but it still kind of takes on this mythic quality in terms of the overall monomyth approach that it takes. I mean, I'm sure you could probably take the idea of the premise of the Blues Brothers, the story the film is trying to tell, and line it up with Joseph Campbell's famous monomyth, or as many people may call it, the hero's journey, where you have your inciting incident, which is basically kind of the main goal of their journey being getting the money to save the orphanage, and their goal being we need to get the band back together. It follows a lot of those same sort of beats, and it very much has this weird theatrical absurdity to it. I mean, when you have what is essentially a bunch of extended cameos from very well established musicians like James Brown, Cab Calloway, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, I mean, for what it's worth, they made full use of those talented musicians during those longer extended scenes. You can tell that there was a genuine love for their influence on rhythm and blues, jazz, and music in general. You can tell that it was very much crafted with love, as opposed to what we would get nowadays if they were to try something like this in this day and age, where you would have it with a shallow surface level cameo. Here you can tell that these extended cameos from these respected musicians came from a place of love, as well as adding to the overall absurdity of it. I mean, I'm sure people have done dissections and discussions of the Ray Charles scene at the pawn shop. I know at least one of my screenwriting instructors, I think it was actually a storyboarding instructors, talked about it when we would analyze that scene as part of our class. And so, yeah, this film still holds up really well, but it very much shows that it's not the kind of film they make anymore. This isn't some boomer on Maine, oh, it's because things are super sensitive. It's just like, no, this film, if they were to try to make it today, would be very, very expensive. I mean, the final climactic big chase scene at the very end of the film, where you just see how things keep escalating and escalating and escalating and escalating, they would never shoot it and do it in the exact same way. I mean, yeah, people would be like, oh, yeah, but they would use CGI to do all this stuff. Yeah, and I think you would lose a real part of just that realistic grit that makes the absurdist humor work. Because, yeah, you could recreate and do a lot of these same jokes with CGI, but it just wouldn't feel the same. It would have that polish that CGI tends to have when people are using it as a crutch, and it just wouldn't work the same way. It wouldn't be shot the same way. It wouldn't have that same chaotic energy that makes the sequence as hilarious as it is as you're watching things build up to the final climax. And another part of it is just something I noticed. And again, it's a film from the 80s. And so I know it's not really fair to judge it by certain metrics because some of the actors involved who are still alive are a lot older now. But there was a certain physicality to both Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi's performances here that, again, you don't really see from actors nowadays, where they really put their whole selves into the roles they're playing. I mean, yeah, we have actors who go above and beyond, but we don't really have people who really have it all where they act and sing and are in films that fully utilize it. And that was just another thing I really noticed, especially when watching how Dan Aykroyd would move. And you could tell it was Dan Aykroyd actually performing. Nowadays, if they were to try something like this, they probably would have like dance doubles and other actors filling in, which, yeah, can work to a certain degree. But again, if they were to try to do that today with the technology and with the types of performers we have now, you would again lose that same natural, chaotic, frenetic energy that the film was going for. Now, I will say this, it's not perfect. It did feel like it dragged in a few places, but it wasn't like I got ultimately like bored or anything. It just definitely is one of those things where if you're not in the right kind of mindset for an absurdist film like The Blues Brothers, you probably won't really enjoy it. But if you're someone who is willing to kind of fully suspend your disbelief and just embrace the absolute insanity the film offers, you'll have a good time as you're watching it. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on seeing The Blues Brothers in theaters for the very first time. And yeah, now I just have to finish the rest of my weightlifting workout to burn off the popcorn. But until the next film I see, I will see you all next time.